Okay, we are back again, part three. Yeah, so back to your Korean trip. They gave you the tour, and just generally, what was your experience? And what did you kind of learn from that?
Yeah, so I guess back I was invited to KNSU, or the Korean National Sporting University team there, and I was obviously quite impressed. The Korean training centers are pretty typically where you have like an indoor-outdoor shooting range style of thing, where you're inside, open windows and shoot outside. And obviously South Korea has it's pretty humid and hot in summer, and then in winter is cold and snowing, and this allows them to shoot all year round at 70 meters.
Yeah.
And so that's typically the facility side of things, and at KNSU is quite a big team. It's one of the top university teams in South Korea. So they had 24 athletes on scholarship there. They're all on scholarship for the team, and I think they had a coaching staff of 3 or 4 coaches, including some kind of archery royalty, which was cool. And the coach who invited me there, Kim Dong-guk, is a archery professor there. I got to sit down with him and have a really good chat for several hours, in fact, over coaching approaches and philosophy and training methods and strength training, physical conditioning, mindset preparation, all that sort of stuff. And he really impressed me, and to be honest, he changed my perspective on Korean coaching quite a bit. But yeah, I was just very impressed by the professionalism and the passion he has for the success of his students.
What was your perception before that meeting and after? Like, what did he change?
So, I guess the stereotypical Korean training approach is very rigid, so much so that you'll notice there's no left-handed Korean archers. So they just give them a right-handed bow, and if you cut the mustard, you're good, and if you don't, you're out. So
that's actually true. I've never seen a left-handed Korean archer, actually. But again, that's like they have the luxury of choosing that, because they've got so many people coming through that they've got that luxury, like in the UK, where we're just, anyone who's got 2 arms, come and shoot, this type of thing,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can say there's a luxury, but it's a different way of thinking, man, because like here we're about community engagement and participation and things like that, whereas the Korean system is very, very good for high performance, very competitive from day one, middle school, high school program, scholarship to university, then make a professional team, but along the way, when you get cut, you're out. And it can be pretty tough. Imagine you're an athlete who makes it through to the university level team and then doesn't get recruited onto a professional team. You're maybe not that qualified for other jobs. You've poured, you're 22, 23 years old, and maybe it's very tough to get coaching positions as you're not maybe even qualified for that. And so you can be not out on the street.
It's a bit of a risk, right? Because you kind of putting all your eggs in one basket, and if you don't make the cut, you're redundant in a way.
Yeah, so it's pretty cutthroat, and can be tough. So in terms of driving high performance, obviously very effective. Highly competitive environment, structured development pathways, in financial incentives and a career opportunity for success. But for those that are cut along the way, let's not forget about them. It's just real sacrifice, and it's pretty tough. So you might say, okay, it's very fortunate the Koreans can choose their archers. Yeah, but in terms of community engagement and participation and things like that, it's not good. So there's things that we can learn from the Korean approach, but I think we should not try and copy and just be a carbon copy of that approach. So we should take the good and leave the rest, is my thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because it's, how do I want to say, not forced on them, but it's such a prevalent sport in schools. That's their way of creating a lot of supply, right? Because the majority of schools, they're doing archery. Let's even say 20% of all the kids that do archery at schools are interested in it and carry on. That's probably more than all the archers in the UK, something like that. There's probably like thousands of kids coming through schools every year wanting to do archery and are really good. So by the time they get to high school, university level, they're probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're probably as good as or better than some Olympic archers in other countries.
Oh, absolutely. And for example, at when I visited KNSU, there's 24 athletes on scholarship that most countries would envy as a national team.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And this is one university team out of several in a country, not even the top league in Korea. So, in terms of high performance, obviously that is very effective, and that pathway is there for a reason.
I can only imagine the pressure though on the current top Olympic archers to stay where they are. I mean, considering how good the ones coming up behind them are, how good they have to be on their game all the time to stay where they are, because they could easily just get dropped, right? They have a bad season, something goes wrong.
This is a good thing. Yeah. Out. Yeah, so this is something I think I actually like about the Korean selection system. It's completely unbiased. The way they do their selection procedures is just completely objective.
Okay.
And there's no room for interpretation. If you're the best archer, you win, you're on the team. If you're not, you can win the Olympic gold medal one year and then not even make the national team the year after. And that has happened several times over, right? So that just shows the depth of talent that they have. And it was before the Rio Olympics in 2016. Before the Olympics, Korea does their national team selection pretty close to the games, so that they make sure that we get sending the current top batch of archers.
Yeah.
So often the top archers, the top 8 or 16 archers or whatever, are in competition to get selected onto the Olympic squad. And so they don't often send them to the couple of World Cups leading into the Olympics. And so they don't send their A team, they don't send their B team, they don't send the C team. They send like some junior development team to the World Cup in Medellin. I might be wrong on that. And then
I actually heard this story, and I was going to ask you if this is true. It's something like, these things become like Chinese whispers, but it was where maybe someone added some salt along the way. The A team, what was it now? Like, they didn't listen to the coach or something like that. He wasn't happy with them. So he sent the B team. Oh, here's the story. Part of their training, and you could tell me if this is old wives' tale or whatever, they would have to, like in wintertime, they'd be told you have to enter like a frozen lake or something like that. And you kind of got to stay there. All right. Yeah. Some of them didn't want to do it or whatever. He's like, okay, forget you guys. None of you guys are going to go to the competition, whether it was Olympics or whatever. I want to send the B team. The B team went along and still won. True, or is that am I just making that up or what?
No, well, okay, I don't know that particular story, so I can't validate if that's true or wives tell it, but that sort of stuff happens. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I've heard similar things. So yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
That's the case.
That kind of brings me on to
I heard a story. I'm not going to name names, but
go on.
I heard a similar story. I'm not going to name names, but I did hear a story about a Korean coach who, one of the athletes came and said, "Oh, coach, I'm a bit tired today. Can I have a rest day?" And the coach said, "Yep, no problem." Pulled out a chair, put it in the sun, and said, "Take a rest." Sat there in the sun by herself, and then after 1 hour, she came back to the coach and said, "Sorry, coach, I learned my lesson. Can I join in training now?" And he said, "No, this is your rest day. You will sit there while everyone else trains."
Oh,
so
man.
look, let's not gossip too much about it, but
I get the idea.
But I guess the point I wanted to make was that you hear about that sort of stuff, very militant, very very hardcore style training, and of course these are the stories that kind of get perpetuated and whatever. But that was not my experience when I've been there, right?
Sure.
So
we don't want to tarn everyone with the same brush, of course.
Sure.
However, what I do know is that at one point there was a Korean coach that came over to the UK, and this was another question I had about coaching styles and clashes in terms of approaches. I don't know how long he stayed here, but it wasn't that long. But I think just the team were not gelling with him, or he wasn't gelling with the team. You know, he had a particular approach. The team were used to more self-development rather than being told what to do. Whereas in Korea, it's very much like one way, you know, coach talks, you do, that's it. And so after a very short while, he said, look, it's not working. He left. And so, you know, that didn't work. And, you know, we there's a number of reasons why, I guess, you know, UK is never on the podium, but I think there does need to be a level of discipline in terms of, you know, you might not agree with the coach or whatever, but you have to recognize his experience or her experience, and you have to have that discipline and submission to just get on and do it, believe in the process, believe in the coach, and get through to the end.
I think so. I'm going to be a devil's advocate for that argument, if that's okay with you, because I think there's certainly truth in it, right? Absolutely, you know, and you need trust in the coach. You can have the best technical coach in the world, but if you don't actually trust what they're teaching you, it doesn't matter, right? You're not going to do it. So like I think progressive coaching, actually part of the coach's role is to build trust with the archers, right? Not just, and again, culturally, there are differences from Western culture to Eastern culture. And I want to probably put a caveat stamp on this, is that not all Korean coaches are the same either. Right. So certainly you get the hard taskmasters who are very militant in a training style and are going to make you carry buckets of water up a mountain on weekends. But then, you know, my experience has been with coaches who are very progressive and you know, work with the archer individually and try to understand the nuances of their style and their background and that sort of thing. So the same as there's probably different styles of coaches within the UK, within Australia.
Sure.
The same in Korea, right? So we should recognize that they're not just stamped out of a factory.
Yeah.
But culturally, we should recognize this. And I think this is something that doesn't translate well from Korea, is that when you get, say, a Korean coach and who has that kind of cultural background, where in Eastern cultures, it's much more hierarchical. And so, you know, when the coach walks into the building, all the archers will stand at attention, essentially, and then greet the coach very formally. When the coach talks to you, it's not allowed, but it could be disrespectful, in fact, to question the coach. And so there's an element of that as well. And the Korean coaches are come through a system, which means that they can teach their way. I'm going to paint with a broad brush here, but you'll understand the point.
Yeah.
And then for the archers who works, they do well, and then they'll get through to the next level. And for the ones who don't, you just get rid of them. Right. So we talked about it before. You can pick and choose your archers. You can start with 300 archers, teach them all the same thing, and then pick the 20 who it works for and get rid of the other 220 of them.
Yeah.
And then you take that 80 they got to the next level. The coach teaches them, and then the ones who it works, they move up, and the ones get discarded. And there's pretty much the system. And now that works when you have a large talent pool. Right.
Yeah,
it works. Obviously, look at Korea; they're winning gold medals. But then, if you take that approach and you apply it to a small team, who you know, maybe you have 10 archers or 5 archers, and then you coach them in that way, well, what happens? Well, you're going to cut people out, and it's not going to work. So there's a completely different coaching philosophy required, which is, okay, we're going to teach a structured program, which is proven in results, and then we're going to take the ones who it works for, and then a different coaching philosophy is required to say we're going to get the best results out of each individual archer.
Right.
And so the Korean coaches who do well abroad are the ones who take that approach with them and have cultural awareness and can integrate that with other disciplines, not just Korean but other Eastern cultures as well.
So instead of, you know, the archers conforming to the blueprint of the coach, it's the coach finding a blueprint for each individual archer to find their potential.
So that's what I believe is progressive coaching, which is that there are obviously technique fundamentals. There are fundamental principles of technique and shooting and performance and training and things like that. And these things are non-negotiables, right? These are things that everyone needs to have to shoot at a high level. And then, but often if you look at, say, the different coaching styles, and in my, you know, circle, people argue about conventional technique and linear draw versus angular draw and NTS versus Korean style and this versus this, and how deep should the bottom finger hook the string, and should you draw in a linear draw or an angular draw, or should you shoot with a square stance or an open stance? And you can have those debates, that's fine. And then you can go and look at the top 20 archers at any World Cup and be proven wrong on 50% of the time, because there are archers who are performing exceptionally well who have different styles.
Yeah.
So what I believe is the approach, this is me now, Jarryd's opinion, is let's understand what those fundamental principles are, right? And then let's understand which things are negotiable, which things can we adapt to the individual, right?
Yeah.
So I have a method for teaching, okay, how do we determine what stance should the archer adopt? Because, for example, in, Korean style teaching, everyone's square stance, and in NTS style, everyone's open stance. But if you were, let's say, a NTS coach, and you were given Kim Woo-jin to coach, Olympic gold medalist, without a doubt, one of the best archers in the world, would you make him shoot with an open stance?
Right.
To me, it would be quite presumptuous to do that. And similarly, if you take someone like Brady Ellison, who shoots with an open stance, and if you were teach a square stance, would you make his square stance?
Right.
No.
It wouldn't make sense. Yeah.
There's nuance to these things, and that's why I was asking you before, what are the commonalities within different shooting disciplines, right? Different traditional styles and modern styles of archery, which I think you could have some really interesting insights on, not just what is done differently, but what works across disciplines. I think can give us really valuable insights to becoming much more sophisticated coaches and archers.
Yeah, sometimes what I like to do is I kind of see myself as a how can I say, just like a salesman. I'm showing you all the options, and I want to encourage you to try them. So don't be scared to, you're used to square stance, try open stance, try close stance even. Why? Because then you'll know if you like it or you don't like it, and that will emphasize, oh, actually, I don't really like the open stance, it didn't work for me. Now I know definitely square stance is for me. So I will let people try them out and explore a little bit and see what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes, you're surprised that, oh, I didn't think that that would work for you. And if it does, at the end of the day, I tell them, look, there's the famous saying, the arrows never lie, right? So if the arrows are grouped nice together and they're in that 9 and 10, but I'm telling you to do something different, it's not working well, the arrows are telling me something different. And really, at the end of the day, that's what matters. Like you said, the Korean coaches will take whoever's the best on the score sheet. Doesn't matter how long you've been on the Olympic team, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter anything. It's totally arbitrary. So ultimately, that's why archery is such a kind of true sport, because it doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter what you think of yourself, whether you think you're the best archer in the world or you're the worst. Let's look at what your arrows tell us. And so with some of my students, I tell them, look, we're going to learn a new language. And it's the language of arrows. You have to learn how the arrows speak to you when you look at the grouping. You've got 4 of them together, one of them's off over here. That's telling you something, that you did something different on that particular arrow. Now retrace back and think, what happened? Were you distracted? Did something distract you? Was it something mental? Was it something physical? And when they retract, they think, oh yeah, okay, I was thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner tonight, or I was thinking about work tomorrow, whatever. And it's just a way to help them to stay focused for that kind of short period of time. So ultimately, it's kind of, you're just accompanying the student on their journey, showing them different options, seeing what fits for them, and making them feel comfortable. And once a person is comfortable, there's more chance they're going to stick with archery, rather than me saying, no, here's the blueprint, you have to conform to this, whether you like it or not. Don't get me wrong, some people like instruction. Some people react to instruction, and they need instruction. They need to be told step 1, 2, 3, 4, because they need that guidance. Other people they want to be a little bit more free-minded. You just give them a general direction, and it's like, okay, you explore this, and you find for yourself what works, and then let's kind of delve into that a little bit more. So it's kind of a bit of a journey.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So how do you then manage, like, so in my view, I think there are certainly like non-negotiable rules. Like there's things you must conform to.
For sure.
And then there are things that we can suit to the individual.
Right.
So, you know, I think a lot like building an archer is a lot like building a house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you need a strong foundation.
Absolutely, 100%.
Walls, you need a roof, you need these things.
Sure.
And then, okay, what color we paint the eaves, we can negotiate that.
Right.
What kind of tiles you like in the bathroom? Yeah, okay, let's talk about it.
Sure.
You know, what's going to match, for example, what sinkware is going to match the plumbing in the bathroom? Like, hey, we've got to match it together. So I feel like there's rules that you need to conform to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't make the foundation, you know, the walls out of paper mache and expect it to stand up.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. You know, there's non-negotiables on stance, on posture, on, you know, maybe the way you raise, or, you know, the drawing, the mechanics, what muscles we're using. Correct. You have to still operate the bow.
Yes.
You know, but smaller things like, you know, slight differences in the way you're going to release, your follow through, you know, your posture after the shot, you know, when the arrow's left, small things like that, which don't have necessarily a major effect. At the end of the day, for me anyway, and, you know, I'm still on that journey of learning and stuff. So I'm learning a lot from listening to you and how you coach. For me, it's very much, what can you do? And this is for the archer. What can you do again and again in a consistent fashion that's easy for you? Because if you can do something that's easy, you can do it again and again, and that becomes consistent. And in some ways, you can actually make, this is going to sound wrong, I guess, in a way, you can make bad technique good. You can make bad technique consistent. Now, that's going to sound totally wrong to a lot of coaches. They're like, what are you talking about? Okay. What I mean is, let's look at, I forgot the guy's name. You might remember he's an Italian archer. He beat
Kel Frangilli, yeah.
Right. It's the viral clip, right? He's moving all over the place, and he's like playing the violin, and it's like, what is this guy doing? But what happened, right? He, you know, it couldn't have been any closer. He needed a 10, he got that 10, and it was on the line, right? I mean, it was an unbelievable clip, right? But look at his technique. I mean, you show me a book that teaches that technique, you're never going to find it.
He's actually written a book, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
unless it's his book, but anyone else's book, I mean, you're not gonna find it there, right? So he made a routine for himself that was repeatable. For him, it was easy, and it became consistent. Now, who are we to say that for him that's wrong? Okay, it doesn't fit the blueprint. It doesn't fit the blueprint of Master Kim and Master so-and-so and Master so-and-so. But you know what? The guy's sitting with a gold medal. So what are we going to say?
And he's one of the examples I use in my course, my online program, because of course, you know, we debate all these rules about this stance, whatever, back tension and head position. Right. You know, don't move your head during the draw sequence.
He broke all the rules.
Yeah, and he breaks all the rules. Olympic gold medalist. He shot an indoor world record that stood for close to 20 years.
Wow.
And so we should study him to understand, okay, which are the exceptions that prove the rule. And he actually has pretty good, if you look at objectively, technique fundamentals in terms of stability, balance, clicker control, timing. You know, like he's very good on those fundamentals. So
I mean, after all of that head movement, I mean, if you look at him without all that head movement, the full draw position, the expansion, everything, it's like, okay, that's solid. You know, it's just getting to that point. There's so much movement, and you know, in archery, we try to say kind of less is more. It's a very minimalist sport. The less movement you can do, the less variables you have, the better. The more things you put in the mix, it's like you just, you know, you're asking for trouble in a way. But look, he managed to make it work for him. but I don't think there's another archer who's done something similar, right? Everyone else has got that kind of, very fixed blueprint method. Everyone follows the same way. But again, it's interesting. At least there are people who break that mold, but can still prove us wrong. So it's definitely
for example,
an interesting case. Yeah.
I think as a coach, it's really interesting to think about as well, because if someone rocked up to one of my beginner classes and shot like that, I would think, what the hell are you doing? and hey, we should be mindful of that biases that we have. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't teach that style. I wouldn't pretend to, and I wouldn't necessarily even endorse it. But it's very interesting case study, even to examine your own biases, I think.
For sure. And I think, sticking with coaching, if we're talking about coaching people with certain disabilities or conditions, then we're in the field of working with what you've got, right? Okay, the blueprint kind of goes out the window in a way, because, let's say you've got someone with, 2 arms, but one arm's longer than the other, all right? They can't do full draw. So how do they know they're coming to the same position each time? Or, they've got, minor motor skills. They don't have correct control over their muscles, et cetera, et cetera. You have to just work with what you've got, make it as repeatable as possible within that person's body and ability, and ensure that they enjoy it. And you mentioned someone who was on the, I think one of your coaches on the Paralympic team. They work with people like that all the time.
Yes, and I 100% agree. That's a fantastic example. And I think if you want to be a good coach, you should work with para archers, because it opens you up to that philosophy when we're talking about getting the best for the individual. Because I've worked with para archers in the past, and if they have like a T3 spinal fracture, or maybe they have one arm, there's vision impaired archers, and archers with a disability, they each have their own individual, the impairment's different, even with the same, what seems like the same sort of classification, they have their own nuances and things. So then you have to adapt. You still have the blueprint of the fundamentals and the style, but then you have to adapt it to suit the archer. You don't suit the archer to suit the style, you suit the style to fit the archer. And I think that mindset shift is so valuable for coaches, man. Yeah, I really like the way you put that.
Yeah. Just quickly going back to your trip in Korea, for people who are not necessarily aware, Olympic standard is 70 meters. How many arrows are they shooting from inside that building? And are they collecting like after every 6, every dozen, or have they just got like a stack of arrows that they're shooting like 100 and then they go collect, or have they got someone going to collect for them? How does that actually work?
Yeah, so the answer may disappoint you. It depends a little bit, and it depends on whether they're in off season or whether they've got competitions coming up.
Okay.
Now it might surprise you that in the off season is when they do most of the arrow volume. So off season isn't off; it's off competition. It's the chance to train harder to build up your strength and your conditioning.
Right.
And then so when they're in the off season, they're crushing arrow volume.
They're maxing it out.
Yeah. Whereas in a competition, there's more focus on scoring and like maybe the pressure scenarios and match play and stuff like that, and more target shooting. So that's kind of the short answer. The other thing is the Korean training method. It's pretty consistent from what I can tell in terms of structure. So what they'll generally do is they'll have a split session for shooting every day. So they'll shoot from say 9 to 12. And then they'll have a couple of hours break, and then they'll shoot from like say 2 to 5 p.m. Right. So they'll do 2-3 hour sessions, 6 hours shooting per day at the university level, for example. They might, depending on what their focus is at the moment, they might vary that. They'd be shooting, between 6 and 12 hours per end, and then collecting that and coming back and doing again.
Okay.
And I actually think that the archers in Korea who shoot the most arrows are in high school. That's where they pump out the biggest arrow volumes. Right. I've heard about them, running to the target to fit more arrows in sunlight hours and things like this.
Okay.
But yeah, that's basically the case. They'd be shooting, 2,000 hours a week, 3,000 maybe. Yeah.
Do they use, I mean, 70, walking up 70 meters up and down, that's a lot of steps. Do they use that as also a form of their kind of warm up training, cardio or anything like that? Or is it just have a chat as you walk up to the target? Or
I'm going to make a stereotypical example. It would be training is, say they come in the morning, they warm up, 9 a.m. start time, they're hitting go. They are shooting from 9 to 12. And then, so they warm up together as a team. Then they'll go from 2 to 5 p.m. And then after that, they would either go running or go to like as cardio training, or they would do strength training in the gym.
Okay.
It's a pretty typical sort of day.
Do they start off, like you come in the morning, you do your warm-ups, is it bang, 70 meters straight away? Or are they going to be like blank bossing short distance and then they're going to be doing long distance? And do they ever do anything in between?
Well, if they're training for 70 meters, they would maybe do a couple of ends at close distance just to warm up, and then they'll push it straight to 70.
Right.
But again, it depends on the coach, man. It depends on what the focus is, the coach, the archer. I've seen them where they have archers just shooting blank butt, where they're working on technique changes and things. And then, so there's like a typical program, but obviously it's more nuanced than that. They're going to do video analysis. They're going to do different drills and timing exercises and things. And
definitely. Right, we've got about 7 minutes. Tell us what is in store for Rogue Archery kind of going forward. Anything exciting plans, or what's in store for 2023?
Yeah, man, there's some really exciting stuff for 2023. So the academy here in Brisbane is going exceptionally well, and there's so many opportunities at the moment for us to expand our with the team growing here, the coaching team and the development squad growing. We're going to run more school programs next year and try and facilitate those development pathways. Actually, Brisbane 2032, we've got 10 years till we've got the Olympics here in my hometown. So there's a lot of buzz around, a long-term planning towards trying to create some homegrown Olympic champions and things. And that's what we're working towards.
Excellent.
And then as well as that, so what I'm really excited about with Rogue Archery as well is the online stuff. So that's been going really well. I've been really enjoying it. And I do believe as well that, but when you put yourself out there sort of genuinely, you attract people who resonate with that message or who resonate with your vibe.
Definitely.
And so we've got a really cool kind of online community, and from all around the world, different cultures, different experience levels, from kind of beginners, from people who have done it 20 years ago and want to learn it properly, and archers who are at a kind of World Cup level and looking to just gain an edge. And we created this like awesome online team where people are asking questions, helping each other out, like sharing tips and updates. Like I'm learning stuff from them as well. It's just really, really cool. So I'm excited to do a lot more of that, and work with those archers closely, as well as create some more content. I'm looking at maybe going full-time with coaching at some point in the next early 2023.
Okay.
And that's what I want to focus on more is creating more content for YouTube and the course and things.
Sure. No, that sounds amazing. It already sounds, like I said before, you a full-time job already. So how you're managing to fit in your engineering and family and all that stuff is pretty amazing. What sector of engineering do you specialize in? Just out of interest.
So I'm a civil engineer, but I'm a pavement design specialist. So
cool.
That means I design highways, airport runways. That's like the structural part of roads and things like that. So a lot of material science and traffic analysis.
So maybe there's a lot of, crossover with, structural stability and integrity, and then looking at someone's posture, and you're saying, when we build a pavement, we've got to have a foundation and all that stuff.
Correct. And I think you use the tools you have, right? So as an engineer, I have a certain way of thinking that I bring to coaching, and maybe there's a lawyer who brings a different way of thinking to coaching, and
sure.
Within my coaching team, we have a diverse background and things. So that's I think important. But from my perspective, engineering is problem solving. That's what engineering is.
Right, thinking out of the box.
Coaching is problem solving. Yeah. So
100%.
you have analysis, and obviously there's statistical analysis skills and things like that we have, and problem solving and calculations and things. But then at the end of the day, it's problem solving, and you need to be practical and you know,
realistic,
efficient with that.
Excellent. Jarryd, I want to thank you again for taking the time out. I know you're a busy schedule, busy guy. I really am inspired by all of the work you're putting in online and with your students in Australia, as well as obviously, you know, running your work and family and etc. We're going to definitely be following you. So people who are watching this, it's Rogue Archery on his YouTube site, and then you've got Instagram as well. So definitely follow him on that. You know, people from around the world, if you're looking for archery tips or coaching, then Jarryd is definitely there as a facilitator for that. So I definitely encourage people to hit him up as well. It's been super interesting. I appreciate you accepting the invitation for this. We managed to get the timing to work. And it's, you know, again, like an inspiration for me. I sometimes kind of feel, as I mentioned, I'm just kind of wandering coach, and it's just me out there, but it's nice to see other people doing similar stuff, and, you know, kind of making an improvement in people's lives, and extending archery to them as a part of their life as well. You know, it's really good to see that as well. If I'm ever, you know,
I really appreciate that.
Woods,
consider it a standing invitation. You're very welcome. Come and visit. And if there's anything I can do to support you or your community, let me know.
Sure.
That'd be really awesome. And really appreciate the invitation. It's been cool to talk to you.
No problem at all. No problem at all. We'll hopefully have this out in maybe a couple of days, and we'll just spread it far and wide and see who comments and stuff. Hope it benefits people.
Awesome.
All right, Jarryd. Thanks a lot. Take care. Have a good day.
My pleasure. Thanks, mate.